President Trump delivered a rather theatrical address where he boasted about U.S. energy dominance. In his nearly 75-minute-long speech, he also provided updates on military operations in West Asia, and he critiqued his predecessors. Speaking to a packed audience in South Florida, the president spoke at length about the war and the subsequent ceasefire with Iran. Trump claimed that the U.S. Navy was acting like pirates while carrying out Washington's naval blockade of Iran imports. He spoke about the seizure of an Iranian vessel by U.S. forces a few days ago and likened it to piracy.
And they were going straight through. And they said, turn your ship around. And there was no response. Turn your ship around. Evacuate your engine room immediately. And you see all these guys running out of there. Now, they're 5 miles away, and one shot into the engine room, blew up the engine room, the ship stopped. They used tugboats, and then we landed on top of it. On top of everything else, we then land on top of it, and we took over the ship. We took over the cargo, took over the oil. It's a very profitable business. Who would have thought we were doing that? We're like pirates. We're sort of like pirates.
Regarding the war with Iran, Trump insisted on framing it as a military operation. In his remarks, the U.S. president also drew comparisons with past U.S. wars, arguing that in Iran, American forces have been engaged for a relatively shorter timeline, which is just 6 weeks.
What they call a military operation, you know, they don't like the word war, and they call it a military operation because that way you don't have a war, you don't have legal problems. But you ever hear a situation where we're knocking the hell out of somebody and we have a Congress, please, you've only got 3 days left. We spent 19 years in Vietnam. We spent 12 years in Iraq. We spent 7 years in another place, 2 years in another one, 7 years in another one. We had another one for 14 years, and we're in there for 6 weeks. What's taking so long? Now, we could leave right now. Right now, if we left right now, it would take them 20 years, 25 years to rebuild the place. But we're not doing it because we have to do it totally right. We don't want to have somebody coming back in 5 years and you have an incompetent president, which we just went through 4 years of a very terrible situation, very incompetent.
Well, the president also claimed he seriously considered renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of Trump.
I was thinking about seriously calling it the Gulf of Trump, but I really was, but I was told by some very wise people, please don't do this. That's one I don't think would have worked. What do you think? That wouldn't have worked too well. But, you know, it's such an honor to, you look at that incredible, powerful, beautiful, really rich area of water. There's probably very little like it anywhere in the world. When you look at all the rigs out there, all the wealth that's underneath that water, and now it's the Gulf of America.
During his speech, Trump reiterated his criticism of former U.S. President George W. Bush's 2003 invasion of Iraq, saying Bush made a mistake. He also congratulated Iraq's new prime minister designate, and not the president, Ali al-Zaidi.
And by the way, I congratulate the new president of Iraq. I endorsed him. I'm now in the business of endorsing political leaders from foreign countries, countries that nobody's ever seen before. Now, we have a pretty infallible record. We've won a lot of them, but I endorsed him because we didn't like the man that was the president of Iraq, and we endorsed somebody that not a lot of people have heard of, and he won in a landslide.
Yep, the president was wrong. He's not the president. He's the prime minister designate of Iraq. His name is Ali al-Zaidi. Trump highlighted what he described as surging oil and gas production in the U.S., claiming that the country is now extracting double the output of Russia and Saudi Arabia combined. He tied the achievement to his drill baby drill agenda and used it to downplay concerns over global energy markets amid tensions in the Strait of Hormuz.
By the way, more oil is being drilled right now than at any time in the history of our country. We're doing double. Look at this. We're doing double Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Double Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Nobody knows that.
Trump also mentioned hosting Chinese President Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago and previewed an upcoming meeting between them, calling it very interesting. Trump also took shots at former U.S. President Joe Biden.
She loves her and her husband. They love animals, and that's good. That usually is very good for votes. I was never as much, they all wanted me to buy a dog when I went to the White House. They said, sir, you'll be the first president in 68 years or something that doesn't have a dog. I said, it's not going to work for me. No, they like pictures of like Biden walking his dog all that, but his dog was a vicious dog, kept biting our Secret Service people. No, we had 28 bite problems, 28. This was a violent dog. That's not a dog I'd want.
On sports diplomacy, Trump credited a personal call to FIFA President Gianni Infantino for helping secure the 2026 World Cup for the United States. Trump's appearance comes as his administration continues to manage fallout from the war in Iran, fluctuating energy prices and domestic policy pushes. Trump's supporters cheered the energetic delivery and unfiltered commentary, while critics outside the event dismissed portions as exaggeration or distraction from a broader challenge.